Hi everyone. Yes, you're on Greg's Whiskey Guide channel, and yes, we're gonna talk about a lot of bottles today. So better be quick, and I might pause. While preparing the topic today, and yes, it's a second take, so I hope I will make it this time. I said to myself, well, your list of whiskies that you're buying all over again since you started or so, or you added recently on the list, it's a kind of, not reverse, but it's a kind of alternative to Roy Duff Aquavite high recycle review in a way, because it's bottles that will finish in the recycle bin, but one by one or two by two, because I cannot store in my wee flat, I cannot store a lot of empty bottles. There are some empty bottles up the shelves, but you cannot see them because they're used to contain, let's say, glasses or finished bottles I want to keep in my collection in case I need other bottles. There you go. See a wee secret of the place. And some are very sentimental. I kept my finished Port Ellen, for instance, bottles. I don't want to put them into the bin. And as I will never have 10, so not a big deal. They're souvenirs of great moments. So yeah, and I live in flat buildings that are linked together, so if I go to the recycle bin, there might be a lot of people coming and going before the camera, and probably the housekeeper reporting me for doing this and filming, so forget about it, I cannot do that. But what I can do instead is to tell you the bottles that I'm buying all over again, or what I called Scotch whiskies I always replaced in my bar, something like that. The term replaced in English caused me a problem because as I saw the definition, sometimes it says it's replacing by another instead of replacing by the same, so I didn't really understood the correct word I had to use. But okay, enough of it. I will present you 15 Scotch single malt whiskies. There will be another episode about world whiskies, for instance, that I enjoy so much that I always buy another one when the bottle is finished, basically. So most of them, you will understand, are not high-end whiskies, even if I holding them in high regard for many in fact, because it's affordable stuff, and it's also a consistency question. So even if I have reservation in some of these about some of these bottles, I will explain you why I consider I had to replace them. Right? Before I do that, I will also give some honorable or less honorable mentions about some that didn't make my 15 whiskies list. It was very hard to cut down to 15. I wanted to do 10, but then finish into 15. Plus, if I count the mentions, you have there a list of 23 whiskies, folks. Yeah, okay, let's not lose time, and I might pause when I will need to check out some things. Whiskies that didn't make the list, or distilleries, whiskies from distilleries that are not on the table for some reasons. Let's start by this one. I did buy Belvin Doublewood for a lot of time, and I was happy with it, even if it's a bit watered down, like many of those on the table, bit watery at times. it did the job of summarizing Speyside whiskey's profile with half sherry, half bourbon. It's the double maturation, double wood content, so highlighting spices as well as fruits, dried fruits, fresh fruits, and as well as some vanilla. So a kind of nice summary of what Speyside whiskey can be. I bought this all over again for a long time, but since a year or two I saw the prices jump quite high in France, and I am obliged, even if I do my reviews in English most of the time, there will be some French coming in. French whiskies covered in French, but sometimes a summary in English about them, because I know you're curious about them. But I have to consider the French prices, as I'm a French channel, even if I'm doing this in English. And this in France has jumped to from 30 euros or so. I was buying this for 15 years. It has recently jumped to 60 euros in France, and I don't get that, and I don't understand, and okay, in this second take I won't explain in depth why, but if you ask me in description, in the comment, I will explain why, basically. So yeah, this one didn't make the list, but I regret it. Another one that didn't make the list, and I regret it as well also, because I bought another bottle thanks to a friend in Germany. Why did this beautiful Edredar Caledonia expression, 12 years old, natural color and chill filtered, a lot of sherry cask, etc.? Because even if I enjoy it a lot, this is not a consistency question. This is a question of pricing. This was 49 euros, something like that, in 2013 when I bought it. And I understand 2013, 2015, 16, okay, can jump 5, 6, 10 euros, okay, from 49 to 69. But now, since 2 years, it's 85 euros here. Or say, sorry, 80 to 90 according to the places you go in France. So I cannot put it on the list in terms of renewing it all the time if it's jumps of price. Also because for 10 euros more I will pay now to get this, I will have a first fill cast strength probably expression of Edredar. So no, I cannot accept this pricing. Another one that didn't make the list because it's too soon. Simply, I bought it this last year. I love this whiskey. I praised it already. I recommend it. But in this specific topic of whiskies that I'm buying all over again for a long or shorter period of time, but I at least have 2 bottles I tried. This is not yet the case, but will probably be in a few years. I don't know. If it remains as good as it is, balanced, fruity, spicy, with a, like I said in a forum, in a chat yesterday, with a moderate Campbelltown funk. I like the idea. Yeah, this is a great introductory to single malt category whiskey, and nice value as well. Even if I struggle to find it in France sometime, but I can't find it online on a regular basis. It is a beautiful whiskey, but it didn't make the list, I'm sorry. Another one that didn't make because it's simply discontinued is one of the very best affordable Jura, Isle of Jura whiskies. It's a Superstition. Slightly smoky, with a decent sherry influence. 43% ABV. First expression I had, first bottling I had of this was at 45. very interesting. And I've been told by Richard Patterson the content was going, even if it's an ass, from 8 to 15 years old. And it shows. It's a very complex and with depth single malt. I love its smoky, moderate smoky side. It's really a treat, but unfortunately it didn't. It was discontinued, and I'm not finding in recent Juras as much as interest as for this expression. So rest in peace, superstition, if I may say. Now onto the list of those who made it, and sometimes I will mention expressions that didn't made it but are still on the table with other references. I will do this in alphabetical order because I have no real preferences, and it depends on the mood, on several things. So I don't want to prejudice any brand or whiskey or people who likes these. First one, Abelard, and I hope I'm not 100% sure I am talking about something that will be still continued. This is 12 years old, but this is not the double cask matured. That's a bit weak. This is the non-chill filtered full bourbon one, if I'm not mistaken. I forgot those kind of things. Okay, let's say it's a major bourbon. I will double check if needed. Okay, let me. Okay, folks, apologies, I've double checked. I will have to pause from time to time when I have some doubts. It's bourbon and sherry. But I'm thinking there's a bit more emphasis on bourbon on this expression. As you can see, the magic words, it's non-chill filtered, and it might be colored though, but it's 48% ABV. So the alcohol strength is really helping the flavors to come through, and also this is beautifully blended, because the ABV doesn't make everything. If it's not well made, a high ABV will simply enhance the fact that it's not well blended. Why this one that I'm buying for not so long? It's because another expression has been recently discarded by me, put off the list. It's one of the recent major disappointment, as it was probably my 4th or 5th bottle of Abelard 16 since I started the double cask matured. Recent ones, and it's not the latest packaging, mind you. Now they dropped the almost completely the label to show the more engraving, but I'm not crazy about the new packaging. This used to be one of the best value ever in single malt Scotch whiskey for around 35 euros for me, since I started 2-3 years after. This was used to be full of baked apples and a bit of pears and lots of nice bourbon and sherry influence in it. Really something you could use for the whole, responsibly of course, for a whole meal. It was beautiful, but the recent batches and the second one I'm trying, there's something's not going on like before, or there's some sourness, some something that's a recent profile of Abelard that I am a bit struggling to dig and to enjoy as before. So I'm afraid this one will not make the list for a long time. Now I have to start the list properly, so stay there. Yeah, I started with the Abelard. Okay, apologies. Now this, that many of let's say that many will hate to see here. Yes, it's watered down. Yes, it's the 40% version. The 43 is much better, but not so much better, let's say, okay. But I still believe it's a nice introductory whiskey, moderately peated, around 20, if I'm not mistaken, ppm. This is more moderate than the 30 to 40 Lefroy, 55 Ardbeg, around 35-40 Lagavulin. But Lagavulin is special case, you will see it, because it's older. I still believe it's a nice whiskey with its maritime elements coming through, more than the peat side, some nicely smoke. I love the heady flowers that you can find in it, and I don't want to hear about FWP, please. It's an insult for French people, and I don't believe it's really true. There has been a bit of excess of lavender and violet tones in the past, but based on the 50 or so, 60, I don't know now, whiskeys I tried, I don't believe it has so much impact. Plus there's some beautiful violety notes that you don't have here, that you had there, and I discarded this because there's a consistency problem. But this used to be one of my favorite, more than this one, because it's more sherried and beautifully balanced. This bottling, yes, but some I've tasted since, not so much. Still a good value, especially if you have to pair it with seafood and stuff, and also to make people discover what is a peated whiskey without blowing his mind with too much peat. Of course, it's beaten by this Colilla 12. I can't believe how consistent this is and how typically Islay this is, despite the fact that for a few exceptions, probably the older cask or very limited edition, not 90% or so of this is matured near Glasgow. It's not matured in Islay, but still it is very good. You know it, 43%, so I won't say more. Super great value, super balanced stuff, year after year. I can say the same for a non-peated one from the Highlands. You know this one, 46%. I don't think I have to speak too much about this. Highly recommended, introductory, not too aggressive, because often some Highlanders are a bit aggressive on spices and herbal notes. This one is well balanced and recommended to start to know whiskies with a bit more character, with more structure, that are the Highlanders. Going back to Speyside, back because of Abelard. Of course, this is not what it used to be and I tried some of these. Another story, but let's say this is not as great as it was 20 or 30 years ago, and I know it, but this is still a good value. This is a moderately sherried whiskey, but with some structure. Nice ripe fruit, some spices, decent ABV, 46 this. So nice Speyside distillery. Another big name that people overlook because it's a first single malt that was ever sold in a supermarket in 1963, and in the 90s in France, early 90s. The 15 years old, and I prefer, curiously, this one to the distillery edition cast strength. It is not cast strength. Because I think it gives a great idea of what Glenfiddich can be when there's an emphasis on the oak and on the herbal side of Glenfiddich, but with not too much overpowering notes. And it has some depth because of the Solera system. So you know that big vattings, that are used to do some marrying the cask, and they never let the big vats empty completely. They put some younger whiskey in it, and when they make sure it's around 15 years old, then they bottle it. But some of the whiskey that was in the vat before they added this is older, so there can be some batches can be a bit oakier and spicier, but there's a kind of consistency there, and I think it's an interesting one, especially now that the 18 has jumped in price. And I had to discard the 12 because of many reasons I don't have the time to speak about here. Two other Speysiders to finish their region. Any color, chill filter, everything you want. Glen Moray, Elgin Classic, no age statement, caramel colored, etc. 40% ABV, but less than 20 euros here. Absolutely crazy pricing. Good value, good aperitif whiskey. You can also have it on ice. Yes, it works. So it's something easy to present to the people who want to get into whiskey, Scotch whiskey, and not only blends. This I've been renewing for a long time, probably 20 years or 21 years. This is not super always satisfying consistency wise. But it's impressive how it is still interesting over the years, especially much more interesting for me than the Founder's Reserve 40% version. I renewed this, but I didn't open it because I jumped into too much into the Nadura range recently, which I love. But I will do, it's not ready yet because I waited to have a special bottle to do this rundown, but please be patient, and you will have a rundown with no less than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if I'm not mistaken, 12 years old Glenlivet. I will present it to you, and one of them will be a very collectible one. This list, of course, of 15 whiskies, I replaced it over time, couldn't not include Highland Park 12, which is still a great value in my opinion, a monument of balance and complexity, even if it's less than the 90s or early 2000s version, which I also have, and the 18 with the red stripe here. The 18 could have made the list as well. I had to pick on one expression, but won't do it because of the jump of price. While this is still 35 euros, something like that. This is not the most recent packaging, mind you, but I still recommend it. I've tried it. But it's solid. It's a solid all-rounder, slightly smoky, fruity, floral, oaky, spicy, a bit of everything. Michael Jackson, the whiskey writer, did recommend this anytime, and he was right. And you can still, no, it's not readable now anymore, but probably on the box. So yeah, the Dave Broom also, my friend Dave Broom also recommend this. Now a new inclusion in the list, a bit exceptionally, let's say, because I tried 4 or 5 different batches of this since I had this, and let me check the date of this one. Yeah, this one is from 2015, and I tried, like I said, several batches, and I'm still a great fan of this one. This is not the one that showcases the most the distillery house style. Yes, I agree. Some do not like this expression. Some are crazy about it. The Makir Bay does more highlight the maritime and smoky and everything of this, but this is a beautiful expression because of its balance and its complexity. It mixes 50% ex-bourbon cask and 50% ex-sherry cask. Like all the core range, not all, but most of the core range, it's unchill filtered, non-colored. All are like that, by the way, but this is 46%. That's what I meant. Well, some are 50%. What I also love about this one is initially the Saneg was, as I understood it, after a masterclass I followed, it was initially a French and German expression only, limited release. But due to popular success and sales, it has become part of the core range. Of course, I recommend also the Lochgorm, and but it's a bit more expensive. Another whiskey that is mandatory on this list, and it is no surprise for those who know me and who know how good this is, even if there has been consistency issues, especially if I'm not mistaken, between 2005 and 6, and it was at the time they introduced Kulila as a classic malt instead of this one for 1 year or so, but they kept them into the extended range of classic malts because they had some stock issues in Lagavulin, and they did release some batches that had really tired casks, and it was not very good. But with the exceptions of 1 year or two, I think 1 year in fact, because I used to buy it all over again and to try it in shows, and I was invited here and there, and and also in cafes and bars, and when somebody wanted to treat me a whiskey, often the menu in non-specialized or luxury places, the menu in most of the places, the whiskey menu is very short regarding single malts, and this one is often on the list. And I say, okay, if I want to make sure I have something good and nice, for instance, to finish the meal, I take this. And this is no disappointing, comfortable, like a tender armchair of flavors wrapping you, the bonfire, the fireplace. This is comforting dram from Islay. That's all I'm gonna say now. Yeah, much better, much more consistent than the 10 years old, the Lefroy quarter cask. Great value, great value. Then again, one of the very first, I did a special video about it, so please check it out, so I'm not gonna be long in there. One of the very best and very early Norwich Statement whiskey, along with this Superstition and with Longrow CV and a few other legendary ones, if I may say, with a wide array of ages. This is also the interest of this version, the 48% ABV and the non-chill filtering, and yes, it's caramel colored, but this is a great example of how Lefroy can be good. Of course, I recommend also the 18, but the 18 is discontinued, as I understand, or expensive now, but I still have some, you can see. The 10 cask strength is way more interesting, 10 years old cask strength, than the reduced one. That is not like it was 20 or 30 years before, and I tried many, so I can tell. And I recently got the Lore, which I like also a lot, so I'm now in position to do a nice rundown as well when I will find time. Getting close to the end, Longrow CV. Some of you might say, Craig, what are you talking about? Longrow CV, it's discontinued. Yes, it's discontinued, but it has been rebranded as the peated. That's why I'm putting it on the list, because I don't have a peated and I still have another one of this. But when the other bottle of the CV will be finished, I will buy a peated, hands down, and with the blind eyes, because it's so good. Great alternative to Islay whiskies. Campbelltown Funk, not so much discernible because the peat does the job. And of course the malted barley, which is highlighted in Springbank. It is from Springbank Distillery. Yes, there are two whiskies, but this one is distinctively more smoky and distilled 2 times instead of 2.5. So there you go. Longrow, let's say Longrow peated for the people who look at nowadays choice. This one also is not the latest packaging. I'm sorry, but I used to buy it for a long time, and for me it's still a masterpiece. What is interesting in those craft distilleries, because everything is done inside at Springbank, is that there are batch variations, but there are not often bad batch variations. It's just a change of the type casks and the proportions within the cask types. And as I spoke a lot to Frank McHardy, who used to run the distillery for a long time, I can tell you that I cannot tell you the proportion exact of this one, but I can tell you it's an interplay between rum casks, bourbon cask, and sherry casks. So according to the mood, the stocks, the possibilities, they will highlight more the bourbon side, more the sherry side, but the rum side will still be on the background. And I used to buy this with the cream label. I still have one, but it's a bit buried. And in the early 2000s, there was almost no sherry in there, and a tiny proportion of rum casks. So with different profile. Now, and also with almost non-peated, or very slightly peated. Now it's much more peated than before, without being a Longrow. But it's very interesting how it changes batch from batch. But still it's the Springbank with the malted barley, kind of porridgey emphasis. Also that kind of funk that's hard to describe. But I don't want to be too long. I love Springbank a lot, and I will do reviews about Springbank anyway. The 12 cask strength could be on the list, but it's sometimes difficult to find, and jumps of the price. This stays. I didn't talk very much of the price, I'm sorry. This remains around 60 euros in France. And regarding the fact this is a craft distillery using around 70 or 80 people in distillery instead of 3 or 4 for the biggest distilleries where everything is automatized, this can justify the price. Same for Kilchoman, same for On the Table, not many others, more industrial ones. Okay, last but not least, and it is not discontinued, I've been told by Diageo. It's just that it's limited in allocations because they don't want to produce too much of the 10 because they're now targeting more younger people, I believe, and a wider audience with the Sky and the Storm that's behind me. But this has come back on French shelves from time to time. They put some stock, and they also changed the label. I saw a new one that's really ugly, but I hope it's not the most recent one. I'm afraid it is, but if you can find this, really, it's a wonderful, very maritime, a bit spicy, beautifully smoky, some floral notes as well. This is a masterpiece. And even if the one I have that might been, yeah, I showed it in the video, in the 15 exceptional whiskies video that I really recommend you to watch, because I gave a lot of alternatives to very expensive masterpieces, and I believe these alternatives are interesting. But yeah, it has changed over the years, but it's still beautiful whiskey, and I recommend it. So that's it. That doesn't mean they are the best. That doesn't mean some others are not interesting. But this is a short list, if I may say, of things I did buy and still continue to buy because I think they're great. So I hope it helped, and I hope you will find some of your references here as well. Tell me if there's others that you think that should be there. It's my taste, of course. And tell me what could be your top 15 or top 10 or top 5 you buy over and over again to have home. Okay, thank you. See you soon. Bye-bye.